Welcome back to another edition of HawgBeat's Know the Foe series. It's been a while, but with the SEC West race heating up, I figured it was a good time to get back into it. I'm Andrew Hutchinson, the managing editor of HawgBeat.com, the Arkansas site in the Rivals Network. And I'm excited to be joined today by one of my colleagues at Rivals, Bryan Matthews, who is the senior editor over at AuburnSports.com. Bryan, appreciate you taking the time to talk to us ahead of this week's big series. How are you?
I'm doing great, Andrew. Great to talk a little college baseball. One of my favorite times of the year. I've been covering Auburn and college baseball for over 20 years now. So looking forward to another great matchup this weekend.
Now, before we look ahead to that series, I want to kind of look back at the season Auburn has had. What kind of were the expectations, both within the program and kind of among the fan base going into the season? And is it safe to say that they have exceeded those expectations?
Yeah, I think they've overachieved this year. I know they're picked near the bottom in the preseason poll in the SEC. I think fans expected it to be an average type year. I don't think there was a whole lot of excitement in the preseason about the team. There's just a lot of questions. Lost so many players off of last year's team, but they have definitely overachieved. They've won a bunch of really close games. They have played some good teams really, really well, and then they've done a great job of taking care of business during the midweek games, which has really helped their RPI. I think when I checked 2 days ago, the RPI was up to 3. So that puts them in really good position when it comes to trying to host a regional, which they haven't done in quite a while. So it's been a really good season for Auburn, and they've definitely exceeded all expectations so far.
Now, this past weekend, they lost the series, but it was against Tennessee, which no shame in that. But they did take a game, which is more than most teams can say, and they were right there in the other two. Kind of what's the mood around the program after dropping a series like that?
Yeah, they were up 4-2 on Friday night, and then Tennessee scored 15 runs the last 2 innings. They lost 17-4. I think that's what it was. And then Sunday's game was 3-3 going to the 8th, and then Tennessee hit a 2-run home run there to win it. So yes, very competitive series. I don't know if you saw it, but Tennessee's coach, who's had some run-ins before, took exception to the bat flip. I guess it was Saturday, Auburn's walk-off, well, not walk-off, but winning home run. There were 3-run home run, I think it was the 8th or 9th. And he tossed the bat back toward Auburn's dugout and toward all the players out there celebrating. So that almost kicked off a little brawl there, which would have been interesting. But I would say Auburn's going to come into the series with a lot of confidence, right? They feel like they can play with anybody and compete. They do have some injuries that have affected this team. That happened Friday night against Tennessee. They lost Hayden Mullins, their Friday night starter. Don't have official word yet, but we think it's going to be for the season, most likely Tommy John. And then Blake Burkhalter, who leads the SEC in saves, he tweaked his hamstring. I think he's going to be okay to pitch this weekend, but we have not got confirmation on that either. So that's one just to keep an eye on.
Gotcha. And of course, Arkansas fans are very well aware of Tony Vitello as a former assistant here. Yes. And they had a run-in with Dave Van Horn last year. So
they're not buddies anymore, are they?
Yeah, that's kind of their style over there in Knoxville. Yeah. It's interesting. But back to Auburn, the Tigers are led by arguably the Golden Spikes front runner, in my opinion, and Sonny Dashara. He's putting up just incredible numbers right now, hitting 436, 13 home runs, 40 RBIs. He's drawn lots of walks and not striking out very much. He was a good player at Samford. Yes. But this is the SEC, and he's putting up even better numbers here. Did this come out of nowhere, or what can you kind of tell us about his evolution there at Auburn?
Well, he did put up the big numbers at Samford, but you didn't know how that would adjust to the SEC. You're right. But and if you look at him, he's just a big old boy. He's 100% Italian, right? In fact, if any Arkansas fans come down, you'll hear his walk-up song. I don't know the name of it, but it's like the Italian wedding song, and it just gets the whole crowd just really fired up. And he has really, really quick hands. So it's just hard to get one by him, especially when he's dialed in. The one issue with him lately is teams are just, pitching around him or intentionally walking him a lot. And he's usually pretty patient, although he has struck out a little bit more lately. Auburn's been working to try to get somebody, behind him in the order that's a little bit more dangerous. And, they may have found that guy and Bobby who hit that 3-run home run, against Tennessee Saturday to win it. But he is a special player, hits power, hits a lot of balls for doubles. normally is center field to a left field type hitter, but can go oppo at times.
Now, I mean, it seems like Auburn has a pretty solid lineup overall.
Yeah.
Kind of what's their style, and who are some other guys, aside from Dashara, that Arkansas fans should be aware of?
Blake Rambush is a high quality leadoff guy. He's a guy that, when Auburn plays leadoff guys like him, you hate to see it because first of all, he's going to get in there and make that pitcher work for it. And second of all, he just finds ways to get on base. And when he gets on base, he's one of those guys that he takes a lot of attention away from the pitcher and what he's trying to do to the hitter. So he's just one of those guys. I think he's reached base going back to his last year of junior college. It's some crazy stat like 58 of 60 times or something like that. So he is a guy who gets on base. He's also got some pop. He can get a home run or drive it into the gaps pretty well. So he's a guy that you're going to want to keep an eye on top of the order. And then Auburn has got a bunch of guys just through the order that a little bit of pop here and there, but they're pretty competitive. They do a good job of getting pitches into starters and getting the bullpens and having success against bullpen pitchers. That's been their MO a lot of times. If they can keep it close, get into the late innings, they've usually got a good chance to win. And they've got a bunch of clutch guys down in the order. Bobby Moore's a senior. His dad played at Auburn. Brandon Moore, Brody's a great defensive shortstop and come up with some big clutch hits. I would say this team plays very good defensively. One of the better defensive teams I've seen at Auburn. I think they're second or third in fielding percentage, at least they were last time I checked. And then, pitching wise, they don't have that number one lockdown starter, the guy that's going to be a flamethrower and, hit the big slider, that a lot of guys have in the SEC. But their best pitcher, Joseph Gonzalez, who they had been using on Sunday, is a guy who just has a sinker that once he gets that going, teams just roll through that order really fast. And before you know it, it's 2 hours and you're in the eighth inning. He's one of those type of pitchers. And he almost did that to Tennessee. He gave up 3 runs in the first, held them without a hit, I think, or maybe a couple of hits through the next 6 innings, and then gave up that bomb there in the 8th.
And speaking of that rotation, I mean, you mentioned the injury to Mullins. You don't expect him to pitch this weekend. How do you, if he's not available, how do they shuffle up the rotation, and who do you think Arkansas will see as the starters this weekend?
They got some options. My guess is it's going to be Mason Barnett, who has served as their midweek pitcher for most of the season. He started in the SEC a lot last year, very inconsistent, has probably the best stuff on Auburn staff, but maybe doesn't have that lockdown tough mentality, right? He's a guy that in the past, he's gotten better, obviously, but in the past, when he's gotten in trouble, it tends to get amplified. He has a tough time, fighting through that. So, but the first time through the order, he can be really, really good. So we'll see if he gets the opportunity, and if he does, and if he's on, he could do some good things for Auburn. But that's been sort of like Auburn this year. They've had guys step up when guys have been down. They've had guys overachieve from what you expect. So maybe Mason Barnett is a guy who can do that now.
And also, I want to get your quick thoughts on maybe the bullpen. You mentioned the closers dealing with a little bit of an injury. Who are some of the key arms that come out of the bullpen? And Arkansas fans, their biggest concern is, are there any lefties that can come in and give Arkansas problems? Because that's something Arkansas has struggled with this year.
Well, Auburn doesn't have a bunch of lefties, but they got a really good one, Carson Skipper. He's been used as a setup guy. And if you go back to Auburn's sweep over, who was it 2 weeks ago? I can't remember. But Carson Skipper and Blake Burkhalter pitched in all 3 games. Skipper set up Burkhalter. Burkhalter got 3 saves, so they will use him. He's a guy that can go, for a short outing or maybe give you 2 or 3 innings if you need him to. He's not perfect, not blow guys away type, but when he's on, he can be really good and durable. They've got a couple other guys, Tommy Sheehan, a transfer from Notre Dame, who they thought might come in and be a Friday night type starter. He's taken a while to get started. He's another option possibly to start in Mullins' place, but he's a guy now that's been lately coming in and giving Auburn 1 or 2 innings of relief. I think he did that against Tennessee for an inning, if I'm not mistaken, and did okay there. So he's another lefty to watch out for. But Auburn's bullpen has been really, really thin. I would say that Skipper and Burkhalter probably been a little overworked this season, and they've been trying to develop some other guys behind them. So we'll see how that keeps on going. They've got 3 or 4 other guys they've been working in there trying to get to step up, and we'll see if those guys can take another step forward this weekend.
And I know whenever we think about, the top SEC environments, you don't necessarily always think about Auburn baseball, but I'm curious kind of what the excitement level is and kind of what you expect from the atmosphere for a really big time series this weekend down there in Auburn.
I don't think, Jordan Hare is a great atmosphere, right? And
Hmm.
Auburn Arena has become maybe the best atmosphere in the SEC, or one of the best. I don't want to make anybody mad or anything, but it just hasn't happened at Plainsman Park yet. The one thing that is happening is they're starting to fill up the park, right? About a month ago, they had the largest attendance for a midweek game, and they've been, filling it up on weekend games, although finals are this week, so students are going to be moving out here soon. So we'll see how that affects the attendance. But I would never call Plainsman Park a really tough place to play. It's a beautiful park, it's an enjoyable place to go. But I don't consider it really a tough place for opponents. The toughest thing about Plainsman Park is just playing Auburn, I guess, right now.
And you're welcome to make a prediction here if you want. You don't have to, but I'm curious, kind of just lastly, how are you feeling about this series? Kind of how do you think this series is going to play out?
I haven't really thought about it. I would not be surprised to see Arkansas take 2 or 3. But then again, this is an Auburn team, right? Because on paper, Arkansas is a better team, right? And they should win 2 out of 3, even if it's on the road. But this is an Auburn team that some ways somehow keeps finding ways to come up with wins. I would expect a very competitive series, and for most of the 3 games to be decided late innings. So that's the thing I expect. I'd probably pick Arkansas to take 2 or 3, but would not be surprised at all to see Auburn win the series, probably coming down to Sunday.
Well, that's all I got for you, Brian. Again, thanks for taking some time to talk to us and give us some insight on the Tigers, a very surprising team in the SEC. I know I'm really looking forward to watching what should be a great series. As a reminder to everyone listening, the series starts at 7 o'clock Friday, with 4:30 and 1 o'clock starts on Saturday and Sunday. Games 1 and 3 are on the Plus, SEC Plus, if you want to stream it, but game 2 is actually on the SEC network. And as always, you can get complete coverage of the Diamond Hogs and all other sports over at HawgBeat.com.